Down here on the bottom, I'm going to actually jump over to page 8 because it gives you a summary. These are line items down here. But before I do, I didn't circle this, but I wanted to show you. I didn't circle this, but I want to show you something on page 7 before I jump. So if you see at the bottom, you see the bold numbers that say total expenditures, right? It's in the bottom three lines up there. 527,809 was what you spent. We already talked about that in the general fund. We got the middle column set at 582, and that's this year right now. And that's what's hard about budgeting is because we don't know. We're only in May. And when we get the budget finalized in August, we still got 4 months left. So we don't know exactly where we're going to end up, okay? So then the 889,461, you see that number? That is the total budget authority of the general fund with cash included. So you could spend up to 889,461 and not have a budget violation. But if you do spend 889,461 in the general fund, you'll have no cash left. Okay, you see what I'm saying? So we always budget the cash, and it gives you a little more flexibility in case someone run into some challenges. And then right below that 889, you see the 194,602, the very bottom number, bold. That is the amount of taxes that you levy, and I just kept it the same as last year until we know what the mill levy is. But that's the amount of taxes. 194,602 is what you levied in the general fund last year. Okay, and we'll talk a little more about that here. Okay, go to page 8. Page 8 is where the general fund is summarized. So you have, and this could be all kinds of different departments. It could be different line items. You try to keep it as simple as possible, but you have a general government section, which is at the top. You have a police department. So you have general government department, police department. You go down, you have fire contractual. So it looks like nothing was spent out there, but you budget for it. Because your fire here is a fire district, isn't that right? That's what Gallup is too, yeah, okay. Streets, there's some more street expenditures budgeted here, but there's really only $1,467 was spent out of here because most of it is transferred over and spent out of the special highway, okay? And then you have Parks and Rec. You have McMurray Ballpark as a department. You see those circles I've got down there? And let's see, Parks and Rec, you spent $1,873 last year. Oh, one right above that in the circle is streetlights. Streetlights, that seems crazy, doesn't it? Streetlights cost you $17,377, okay? Isn't that amazing? Yeah, and then you go down, McMurray Ballpark was $123. Okay, then you flip the next page, you have the swimming pool, and these are all still in the general fund. These are departments in the general fund. You have the swimming pool. Last year it cost you $19,658 based on this, and these are right out of the audit report, so I'm pretty sure that's pretty accurate. And then you have the transfers of $95,000. So that would be the departments that you have in the general fund. And so what our job is here, and this won't be done, I wouldn't recommend doing this tonight. I would take it home, I would look at it, I would mark it up and put questions by it. And then I'm glad to come back I got almost every night I got something going. We're going on a 2-week trip in July and for our 40th wedding anniversary. And so my life right now is just crazy trying to get it all done before that. So if we can find a night to do that, I would really like to come back after you've had a chance, after I went through this and you mark it up with your questions, I come back and we have another work session. Because what we have to do here is basically, if you look at page 8 and 9, what we have to literally do in the general fund is we have to figure out in the very right-hand column, the 2025 column, we have to figure out where you want to set your budget line items for each of those departments I just asked about, okay? Now, it's not real critical. You could be off because the way the state law is, you don't have, if you, let's just say, like the swimming pool up there, you budgeted $41,000, okay, in 24's budget. You spent $19,658 in 23. So I'm not sure some of it's capital outlay, so it might have been, do you know, Mary, were there slides in the past maybe that they paid for and that's why the capital outlay, or I'm not sure.
Slides have been there for a long time.
They've been there for a long time.
We don't spend hardly anything.
Yeah. The pools, I'll just be honest with you, pools are drains in any city, but it's a recreational, and that's the way they look at it. It's a hard one. You know, you just have to realize that you're providing a service, and that service is we're going to put a pool here and have it open, and so kids and families can enjoy it. It's not a moneymaker, okay? But anyway, what we need to do is we need to go down the middle column, the 24, and see where we're at right now, and the 25 column, and mark it up and say, where do we want our budget, okay? And then what's left over will be the cash carryover, okay? And then I'll show you something here that happened with the debt service fund, because I talked about the debt earlier, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but you'll have some more availability in the general fund if you keep the mill levy the same. So that would be your homework so far, is if you just look through those departments in the general fund and ask questions or mark them up, or, you know, and when I come back, we can just go down the line and go, you know, put in what you feel as a council that needs to be put in there, and then I'll show you how much what the levy would be, okay? Okay, here's the good news based on the debt we were talking earlier. So on page 11, how this works is this has always been a levy fund for those GO bonds, the series 20, I don't know, 13, 14, and 15, or whatever they were up there. I don't remember the exact numbers. 13, 14, and 17. And I believe, I'm not positive about that, but I think that was for streets. Do you remember? Was it for streets back then? Because isn't that when you put the concrete down the middle, or not?
No, well,
No?
that probably was First Street.
Okay.
Some big bucks.
So what were those bonds for? I don't remember off the top of my head.
First Street's one,
Okay.
and that one, I'd have to look.
That would be about 11 years ago, and I was thinking that was Ethan would have been about a freshman.
Yeah.
I just remembered when you were doing it. I couldn't remember exactly.
But that one, we did the water main, so we shall I say, sold that main to the bank,
I got you.
and then we paid on that,
Okay, so you had to fix the water lines and the streets.
and the gas.
Yeah.
The gas line,
Yeah.
but, you know, that happens,
Yeah.
everything on it.
That's why they haven't got the curb and guttering on Main Street in Galva, because the water line that goes down the west side of Galva is bad, and it's gonna take an amazing amount of money to redo that. You don't wanna redo the street until you get the water line done. So there's a lot of that going on in cities, because you don't wanna do streets until you've got the water lines are like the 50s and 60s when they were put in. So there's a lot of problems with that. Yeah, I understand that. Okay, so this is where the debt was paid for those 3 bonds, okay? And so that one bond, remember I told you got paid off? So what that means, is you see the circle with the line through it is 81,557 on the right-hand column, okay? So the way this works in a debt fund is you put in what the payments are, okay? And that's what, if you look under expenditures, it says GO bond principal, GO bond interest. You see that? You go across and you paid in 23, 50,000 plus 50,000 principal, 10,750 in interest. And same in 24. But then see in 25, it drops because that one bond got paid off. So you're only at 25,000 plus the 8,100. Plus you've already got cash in there of 81,000. And so the reason without getting too complicated here, the reason they put a lot of extra cash in a bond fund like this where it's paying off is your taxes don't get distributed to you until January, March, and May or June, okay? So the first interest payment is usually in March to May. So if you looked at those payments, let's see what the dates are. Yeah, one's February, April, and June. And so what they try to do is have enough cash sitting in that fund to pay those first interest payments in case you don't have enough in the distributions. Because the distributions don't come in until later, okay? But you've got 81,000 interest payments on those funds are $8,100, and you've got $81,000. You think that'll cover it? Yes, it will. Okay. So what we do is we take, and we can't take any cash out of that fund except for the amount of the levy. You can't transfer from debt service to general. Okay? So what we do is reduce the 81,557 by the 38,615 at the bottom of there, the tax levy. You see that number right at the bottom of 25? We reduce 38,615 out of that cash, and you still have 42,942. And what that means, that will make the payment again next year without a levy. You see what I'm saying? And that would probably make the pretty close to making the next one, because it's 25,000 plus 8, so it's not quite. So you'll get away basically without a levy in this fund probably for 3 years, 2.5 years. Okay? Does that make sense? And then what we do, if you want to keep the same mill levy, you take that 38,615, which I'll show you where you can see that. If you look at page 15, it shows you how that mill levy, I've got it circled at the bottom in total of 50.733. But if you look right at that column, on the very last column, you'll see 42.333, 8.40. You see that number on the very last, okay? That 8.4, if you kept the same mill levy, you actually can put that 8.4 in the general fund. So what that means is you have an additional 38,000, and it could be more if the assessed value goes up, almost 39,000 to put in the general fund to help with streets, help with other expenditures that you want to make. Does that make sense? Okay, and that's a good thing, because the debt's been paid off, and in 2 more years we'll get to do that again. Now that's a different one, because that's the water fund, and we'll look at that. That will affect it a little differently, because it's paid, that debt's paid by the water fund. It won't get you any taxes, levy or anything, but it will help with hopefully setting some money back in the water fund. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. Go to page 11, and this is where we start what's called the non-tax levy funds. And what that means is they are fee generated either by like the state of Kansas gas tax, transfers, fees that you charge for water, sewer, and trash, anything like that. That's what these funds are. There's no ad valorem tax attached to them, okay? So the top one we've already talked about pretty well. I circled all these numbers at the bottom of these, because this is what you can see here. If you go home and make note and you want to look at this, what this circles mean is the bold number is how much you spent in 23 on the special highway. Right below it is the unencumbered cash at the end of 23 in the special highway. So you've got 206,000 sitting there, okay, at the end of 23. And the bottom number is the budget authority in that year. So it's pretty well, it runs the same, but that's what those 3 circles are. And I did that on, I think I circled every one of the funds. And we can look at that, because that'll show you kind of where you're at, what you spent last year, what amount of cash you got in that fund. And then when I come back, we can ask questions on, can we move this money around? Can we use it for this? Can we do this? I mean, that's the types of questions you would ask when you come back, okay? Special equipment, you can see here that there's a Next Tech rental. I'm not sure what that is. Anybody know what that is? Next Tech rental? Is that where they rent? Is that where they rent?
It's like a franchise fee, but
Is
it
that
goes
part?
under a rental,
Okay.
and it's for their towers.
Tower. So they have some of their equipment on your water towers. Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't go in the franchise. It actually goes straight to the equipment fund. Okay. Perfect. So then the rest of those are transfers. See, that's the ones I was talking about earlier. They're transferred from general water and sewer into the special equipment, and it's built up there so that you could buy equipment like this dump truck. You could buy that dump truck out of the special equipment fund. You have 102,000 at the end of the year. If you haven't bought any other equipment, that's what the balance would be, okay? But all that is right there is right now is a transfer from other funds. If you go to the next page, page 12, you have Parks and Recreation. Parks and Recreation are generated by what's called alcoholic beverage tax, okay? So it's a fairly complicated distribution, and I'm not going into details, because part of it goes to your city, the county gives you, it's a calculation in the county, but it can only be used for parks and recreation. So only your park, anything associated, so baseball fields, softball fields, anything that you run as a city, probably could do the pool. You know, if you wanted to do something at the pool, that's recreation. The attorney there could look it up maybe, and but those are things that, you know, we can call the league, and if you have questions on certain other maybe improvements you want to do, because there's $23,500 there, okay, that first circle, and you only spent $2,300. So if there's things you want to get fixed up in your park, you have to remember you can only spend it on it. So there's really no reason for it just to sit there if you have improvements to make in parks or in the ball fields, okay? So that's pretty cut and dry. The one at the bottom is the water fund. The water fund, the one question I have there, like I said, I haven't worked on this one for quite a while. Have the rates been updated lately, or do we know that?
I think it's probably been 2 years.
2 years.
I did have an opportunity to talk with somebody from Kansas Water. They
Yep.
stopped by Dr. Nick,
Okay.
and they said that they would be happy to evaluate our rates for us.
Absolutely, they do it for free.
Yes. And he said that one account, and we told they had to raise the rate 64%, and nobody's real happy with that. But we need to get a feel for where we're at.
Yeah. So what happens usually is the only time they'll look at the rates like that is when you're getting ready to do debt, because they won't let you do debt unless you have your rates set right. It's like when Galva put in the sewer ponds, and brand new ones out there, cost them $3 million with the grants. My rate on my buildings and my house went from $8 to $28 on a month, okay, because of that improvement. And that's pretty common across cities. And so doing a rate study helps you understand if you have, like Galva's got water problems right now, so we have to know, drilling wells, or put in a purification plant, or there's just a lot of things that's going to start happening here. So that's why it's good to understand where your rates are at. Okay, that'd be awesome. Yeah, they'll come by and do it for free.
Yeah.
Yep. So I don't know the answer to that, so you're going to check that out. And then what you have down below here, you see the 3 circles. If you go up about 3 lines, you'll see debt service, GO bond principal, GO bond interest. Do you see that in the expenditures right above the 3 circles? That's the debt I was talking about that will be paid off in 2026. Okay, this is the last payment in 2026. So your water fund will get a break of about 18 to 19,000 from the debt there in 26. Okay. Your water fund in the first circle there is 176,677, and we'd already looked at that kind of front, but that shows you what your balance is. When you start comparing, I'm just using Galva because I'm pretty familiar with it right now because we got so much going on there with problems. They have one street where, and I don't know if they got the work done yet, but they're paying for it out of capital food. They got one street where the lead connection goes from the line, the main water main, to the water meter, and you can't have lead anywhere in your system. So that whole street is going to have the lead connection has got to be, I think, oh, you're not, I was thinking Austin's here. All right, because Austin would know that. Austin and I've talked about this, but sorry.
I left him with the kids.
Yeah. And so they were going to use their ARPA funds. They were going to use their ARPA funds to pay for that, but then they decided to put out capital food. But I think it's $133,000 to get that whole street fixed, something like that. It's a big number. And so those are things like that you got to have cash for. So if, say that happened to you, you got $176,000 and you had to pay $133,000 to fix something like that, your water fund would be hurt. So that's why the rate study is very important to figure out where you're at. Okay? The next fund is a sewer. Again, I just asked about the rates. I wasn't sure on that. Same thing. There's a transfer out of here. Actually. Okay, hold on just a minute here. I just noticed something here. I didn't see earlier. Let's go back to the debt and see what. Okay, actually, I told you wrong. The water debt is the Series 2017 debt. It was done as a GO bond instead of as a water bond, okay? So it's not paid off till 32. The debt I was talking about, if you look on the next page, page 13, that debt, you see up there in the expenditures above the three circles, the loan payments, the debt I was talking about was actually out of the sewer, not the water. I didn't notice that earlier, okay? So it's the same, it's basically the same, it's about 18 or 19,000, so it'll help your sewer fund. In the three circles at the bottom, you have 188,540 in your sewer fund at the end of the year, okay? And again, this is another one that can eat you up pretty quickly if you have, problems. The bottom one is trash, and that's probably, I don't know, that's just pass through, I think. You collect the fee and you turn around and pay it back, okay? The only other thing I have here is on the, I believe it was 12, 13, 14, page 14 is your ARPA funds. And so Earl and I talked about this a little bit. I think of Linda was told, I can't remember, maybe I was talking to Linda, and she said Ransom Financial actually is doing your ARPA funds. Did they ever call back? Did they talk to you? They haven't talked to you?
Really?
Well, Rosemary? I don't
Oh,
know. Okay, so what that means is you want to stay on top of this because you don't want it to go past 24, okay? So you want to get your money spent in 24 and I don't know a lot about how Ransom does this, but we do 23 counties with 105, and we've done this in a lot of settings, so we can help maybe, but it's called flip it. I told you that last time, okay? And so what you do is you flip the salaries in the general fund, and then that takes the compliance away from ARPA, and you file the report April 30th of 2025, and ARPA spent. And then you have the 106,000 that you can either transfer to capital improvement, you can put in street, whatever you want to do with it, because there's no strings attached there. And some of these western counties, we've done it there because you don't want to just go spend 150,000 just to spend it to make sure ARPA is taken care of. That's ridiculous, because you don't know when something else will come up. So I thought Rosemary's usually pretty good about getting back. I'll have to send her an email maybe tomorrow morning and follow up with her. Yeah, but that's what that means. Now, okay, so here's a couple things to think about. On this sheet right here, where we have two ways to do this. This is non-budgeted funds. What this means is there's certain funds in the statute, like whether it's a grant fund. The statute for capital improvement is this way. You don't have to budget, but I recommend you do. So like if we do a capital improvement fund, so what we would do is we just go back to one of these non-tax levy funds. We would set up a fund and show 3 years of the 5 years in the budget. That helps you as a council, and it helps people understand here's actual, here's what we're planning in the year we're in, and here's what the next year looks like, okay? But by statute, you don't actually have, you could actually show it as a non-budget and only show actual. That doesn't give you a lot of information. There's a lot of other non-budget funds that can be set up. All you have right now is ARPA, it looks like, okay? And then the last page, and I'm pretty well done, unless you have other questions, is the publication. And this was where you exceeded the revenue neutral rate barely last year, looks like about $1 million. And so you have to have the notice of revenue neutral. Well, first of all, we have to have this figured out by July 20th, okay? So July 20th, you turn in to the county clerk, and they capture what your revenue neutral rate is, and then if you exceed it or not, and then the county clerk will, did you all get mailers last year for your wonderful revenue neutral rate, if you're house owners? See, people thought they were tax statements. That's why this revenue neutral rate is so stupid, okay? So they come out, and what they show you, this legislature, or worked on the forms again, and I just got the form, and I don't know if it explains it any better, okay? So you'll get it probably sometime by the end of July. So you'll have to turn it in July 20th. If you exceed the revenue neutral rate, then within probably a couple of weeks, they will have it sent out, and then you have to set your revenue neutral rate hearing if you exceed it. I think it's after August 10th. And you can have it all the way up to September the 20th, I believe is the date, okay? So you have that window there, and that's why right now we're just working on trying to figure out what the budget's gonna look like, where your mill levy's at, but we do have to know that rate is, okay? Now here's what some people do. The way the statute is written, you come to the revenue neutral rate hearing and the budget hearing, and let's just say instead of 50, and I'm just throwing out a number, let's say we set it at 55, okay? So we're 5 mills above last year. The way the statute reads is we go to the budget hearing, come here, we have the budget hearing, revenue neutral rate hearing and budget hearing, and let's say, no, we don't want a 5 mil increase. We want it back to where it was. So you can always go down, but you can't go up. So if we don't estimate it high enough, and then when we're kind of maybe looking at the budget to finish it up, and we don't have it set high enough, you're stuck, okay? So that's just something to remember. Whatever rate we set, we can go down, we can't go up, okay? Anything else? That's about an hour.
Yeah, so lots of it, yeah.
Did that help at all?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it takes a while to form. You know, one question I get quite a bit is, well, we want to know more than personnel services, contract services, commodities, and capital outlay. So one thing you can be thinking about is, I can't remember off the top of my head how detailed your system is, like your computer, because I know you're probably you're going to look at some point down the road, maybe another software system. But what you'll have is that the department head would have, it'd be like at home, they would have fuel, electric, water, all the different, all that, and then those are grouped together for the state form. Those are grouped together as personnel services, contract services, commodities, and capital outlay. That's why you see that the way it is in the budgets right now. But your detailed system that you can work off of can be a lot more detailed, so you know what those expenditures are for each of the departments, okay? Yep.
The NA system we're currently running is antiquated.
Yeah, it's very antiquated, yep.
Is there anything out there that you run across?
I get that question all the time, and you know, for a small city, it's really, because what you have to do is typically you have to buy modules, okay? And what that means is you have to buy, you know, your revenue model, receiving, okay? Then you'd have to buy your accounts payable. Then you would have to buy your, you know, it gets in utility billing. And I really wish QuickBooks is very popular, and we do have some cities on it. It's not one of my favorites for a city because it's set up more for not-for-profit. But maybe there is some movement. They got a court system now that's set up in QuickBooks, and it's an add-on. It'd really be cool if QuickBooks, because it's so common, QuickBooks would add a module for a government. Take your not-for-profit and some way run it through a module that says this is for bookkeeping for, and Kansas is very unique. It's called an encumbrance system. Encumbrances, see all these terminology for new people. Terminology is huge, okay? But encumbrance, what that really means is you can spend, let's just use an example. We come down to December 1st and we have, we'll do it this way. Go to the water fund, I don't remember what page that was on yours, water fund. 13, 12, okay. So here's how the encumbrance law works in the state of Kansas, okay? So we have 176,000 in the first circle, 176,677, okay? We come to December 1st and we have a water line freeze and break. And we've got to do a lot of work. The contract for that, the contractor comes to your meeting and says your water line is going to be $225,000. not worry about debt right now. Let's just say the contract is $225,000. At the December meeting, you decide to sign that contract of $225,000, okay? And what that does is it, even though no money switched hands, under the cash basis law of the state of Kansas, that 225 goes against your 176, and you're in the red, and you have violated cash basis law. And the bill may not be paid until February, March, April, and that was set up in 1933, okay? Because Kansas is probably the most conservative state in that respect. They do not want you to spend your funds in the red. And that's what encumbrances do. They track everything you do, even if you haven't spent the money. If you have an obligation, that it becomes an encumbrance, okay? Okay, I'll shut up. You guys got other meetings, things to do. Okay, so you gotta look at your calendars and give me a holler. Is that what you're gonna do next? Okay. And do it sooner than later because my calendar, I mean, it really is kind of crazy. So I'll do my best I can. It might have to be a Saturday morning breakfast or something. I don't know. I did that at Pops in Peabody for the fire district. They said, meet me at Pops Diner in Peabody and we'll have a budget meeting on Saturday morning. I said, okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you for your time. I hope I didn't take too much time and I hope that help you understand. Great. Thank you, guys. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be raining.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need to go ahead with the approval of the warrants.
Here. That's what I got.
Yeah, that's all I saw. The only other thing I
Oh, okay. That help?
Yeah.
I can do it or you can, I don't care.
Fine, I'll do this part. I'll do the easy
Okay.
Hi, my name is Kim Witt, and I am not a citizen of Canton, but I serve on the beautification committee for Revitalize Canton. And we have been organizing beautification. So we are providing free of charge to the city 9 flower pots that match the senior center. And we will maintain those and plant them and all that. They are ordered, they should be ready in about a month. And we are, next week we'll be ordering banners. Do we have samples? We need them. The banners are gonna be 3 by 5, they're gonna be giant. But these are some samples of what they may look like. There'll be about 30 new banners. 5 or 6 different styles that we're coming up. It'll be Welcome, Gateway to Maxwell, the Scenic Byway, and Rodeo. Lots of deliberation, and the water towers, so they're going to be very cute. Also free of charge to the city. We will need help getting them installed. Every few months there'll be change needed on those banners, but it should really enhance our downtown.
Do you want a specific rotation, like it should be?
We could develop a
Months
specific
or
rotation,
something.
that'd be awesome. So, we kind of use, the order will be finalized probably next week, and we'll know what we're working with, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been fun.
Good job.
And part 2,